Runescape's inventory system is better than you think, and I'll tell you why. It's an incredibly simple, yet meaningful inventory and storage system. After all, how many other games have a specific, official game mode revolving around the inventory, and nothing but the inventory? Let's dive in. Fresh off Tutorial Island. Wait, why is my inventory already half full of shit? Surely, this can feel weird as a new player. You only did a brief tutorial, you haven't done anything, you're all level 1, but your inventory is already almost full. What happens later? There must be tens of thousands of items in this game. Of course you learned about the bank, I suppose you could dump them in there. You start fishing, your inventory is full in 3 minutes. Surely there's something you can do. You played other games, surely there's a way to upgrade the inventory. Like what's this, 6, 7, 8 or so rows of 4 items, so what's 24, 28, 32, whatever that is, it's not enough. Well, it is 28, and it is enough. It's enough because the game is designed around it. It's designed around having to bank, having to think in trips to bosses, having to take banking time into consideration for pretty much all of the activities to be efficient. This makes each of those 28 inventory spots valuable for all accounts. Even more so for Ultimate Iron Man, but they deserve a separate section in the video given their unique circumstances. You have 7 times 4 spots to work with, as well as 11 slots that are occupied by equipped items, essentially making these slots blocked, and they can only be considered an inventory spot used or saved in very niche scenarios. But in these very niche scenarios, they make you feel like you're the most efficient player ever. To give an example, doing mahogany homes, players already struggle with inventory space. To squeeze out an extra task per trip to make it slightly more efficient before having to bank. In this minigame, you go around major cities in Gielinor, repairing furniture in NPCs' houses, with your trusty saw and hammer, using mostly planks and a lower amount of steel bars. This gives construction XP. To save inventory spots, there is a big ticket item of mahogany homes, the plank sack, which saves tons of inventory slots as it allows you to store a full inventory's worth of planks and extends trips tremendously. After obtaining the plank sack, most players would be content with essentially doubling their inventory and call it a day. But there are 2 more items you can get that would allow you to free 2 more inventory spots. One comes from Mahogany Homes itself, Amy's Saw, which is an equipable saw where you can use your character's either hand slot so you don't have to have a saw in your inventory. The other one is the Imkando Hammer, which is similarly an equipable hammer, wieldable in either hand. This item does not come from Mahogany Homes, but instead another piece of content called Camdozal, effectively having to grind another part of the game to be more efficient in this minigame. Oh, and to get the Imkando Hammer in Camdozal, you need to mine Baronite rocks until you get Baronite deposits, and you need to smash them for an effective 1 in 300 chance of receiving the broken hammer, which you need to repair with shards that you also get through mining, etc, etc. So now you need to have the mining level and spend hours mining to save 1 inventory spot. But now you have a hammer that you can equip, which is now good for other pieces of content as well. Anyway, the point is, the mechanic of limited inventory space created this dynamic of the players looking for every single way to make something be more efficient, take less time, or be more convenient. Coming up with these methods, or even just finding them and implementing them, gives a feeling of satisfaction, the feeling of being efficient. Of course, the game devs can also use this to design content around this principle. Another example of the value of the inventory slot is through combat, which we will go into later. As you get better and better healing items, the value of 1 inventory slot goes up, using lobsters in free-to-play to monkfish to shark to eventually Sardom and Bruise, which basically provides 64 HP in a single inventory slot, with the drawback of having to carry items that counteract its negative effects and having to use it multiple times as you are drinking sips out of a potion. And it's also part of the delicate game design of inventory management and the system itself. The bank. Your storage, your safe haven. You rest here between boss kills. You rest here when you don't know what to do. You rest here and you see others resting here. The bank is an iconic part of the game, and it has always been one. No wonder bank standing has been an official term in the community. It's accepted and recognized by the devs and was given its own pet as an April's Fool prank in Runescape 3 in 2017. The bank is your official storage for all valuables, loot, gear, consumables, and basically every single item except a select few which are either minigame items or incomplete components of something else. This is your hub. You have a player-owned house in OSRS, but ironically the bank is your home. You can only access it at specific places, and banking feels like a community event because everyone uses it for one way or another. Well, everyone, except a very small group of people, but we'll discuss them later. You know what, no, I'm actually lying here. They also use the bank for training herblore, so UIMs, you can't even deny the bank using allegations anymore. So the bank, the hub, your hub. You need to find the bank icon on the minimap to access it, and you have a limited amount of bank spaces, so the original feeling of the inventory limitation is still there, just in a different way. First difference is that you can expand the bank by paying in-game money. It gets progressively more expensive, so after a while it becomes either unfeasible to expand or becomes straight up a flex mechanic. Second difference is that you don't have to complete content using your bank, so you won't optimize it and you'll end up with lots of junk in your bank, often a hot mess of unorganized heap of junk. The fact that you can just dump everything in your bank, but the space is still limited in the end, will cause this mess to slowly build up, but since there's 800 spaces available to members from the get-go, the players will not care about it in the early game, but eventually they will have to face it and clean and organize their bank. And let me tell you, having an organized bank with 100 plus empty bank spaces after looking at all the tossed in junk for a long time is a feeling like no other. One detail that I would like to highlight that makes RuneScape's bank system unique compared to the vast majority of games is the fact that you store your weapons and armor in your bank, which stems from the general combat and game design of RuneScape. Most games with a storage system and lots of items will have you wear your combat gear all the time, and at most have you store your old gear or a few alternate sets in the bank. In Classic WoW, we already have a bank all the way from vanilla, but you would only store your gear for your off-rolling raids or some specific gear for PvP or other trinkets. In Minecraft, you would carry the same tools and weapons and armor you wear and use with different enchantments to cover niche scenarios in your chests. Even if we take a look at games with a horizontal progression design in mind, such as Guild Wars 2, gear is designed to be homogenized with later progression explicitly having stat swapping as a quality of life feature, which makes you only need to store weapons for different builds in your bank, and even this can be avoided by buying build slots, which lets you store a gear set in your equipment tab. This way, in most games, your bank or other storage mechanic equivalent is almost solely used for storing valuables, consumables, or other items you would need later on, but rarely weapons and armor. Given the nature of RuneScape, you have to store multiple different armor sets and weapons and jewelry for different kinds of content, which can easily take up over 100 slots in your bank, sometimes even more. This idea of many different gear and consumables virtually needing a different setup for every encounter, boss, or scaling method creates the dynamic of always trying to be around or close to banks and planning your trips around closest banks in mind. This makes banks busy areas, makes them feel more social and overall more like a base for players. Because of the nature of limited bank spaces, as you progress you will find yourself look for any possible way to store items around the world or use special mechanics. And of course they exist in this game. They add an extra layer of horizontal progression and an additional satisfying thing to do regarding bank maintenance. Please note, most of this is applicable to primarily Iron Man, as mains can just buy and sell most of their items that they would only temporarily need and would only need again later down the road. I would categorize extra storage methods into two separate categories. One is the extra storage within your bank. These are items or mechanics that let you store items within your bank without the need for extra bank space. They come in the form of special containers for tools you would only have one of, so you can save the bank space they occupy. These are the tackle box, which lets you store fishing related items, the huntsman's kit, which stores hunter items and gear, the bolt pouch, which can store items that go in the ammo slot, the forestry kit, which can store all leaves, as well as the forestry currency, the anime infused bark, as well as the full forestry outfit eventually. There's also the master scrollbook, which stores teleport scrolls. And last but not least, I would also consider the Frontier bag, which is the Shades of Morton minigame container, to be in this category, as you're not going to carry around extra swamp paste, limestone bricks and timber beams that don't fit in the bag. This category does not include the plank sack, the coal bag, the log basket, etc., as they are used for skilling, but you're likely to have more than 28 of the items that they store in the bank, so ultimately they are not saving any bank space. Also, the potion storage falls in this category as well, and it deserves its own section, as it's basically within your bank. It's a whole additional interface you put your potions in. You need to grind this in the Mastering Mixology minigame, which is a herb lore minigame, using herbs to make potion orders in the town of Aldurin. It's quite expensive in terms of minigame points, but it's well worth the grind for any player struggling with bank space. The potion storage, as its name implies, is used to store potions. Why is it a big deal? There are lots and lots of potions in this game. Lots of useful ones, lots of not so useful ones, and lots of unfinished potions used for making potions. Also, most of these potions exist in multiple dose forms, essentially each useful potion occupying 4 bank slots. In total, the potion storage can save up to, hold on to your chairs, 307 bank slots, assuming you would store everything in your bank. Of course, you wouldn't store all the junk in your bank. You wouldn't store 4 different dose types of weapon poisons, weapon poison plus and weapon poison plus potions. You wouldn't store any barbarian mixes. These are all basically useless items, so if you'll allow me, I'll do some calculations to see how many bank slots an average player might save, and I pre-assume that you would allow me because I already did the calculation. Anyway, assuming the player only uses the best potion for every encounter, meaning for example only super combats and no super attacks, strengths and defenses, etc., and they would never keep unfinished potions in their bank as they would just use them all, a BVM ready player would still save 66 spaces, which is still very nice. So how many bank spaces can all these items save in the best case scenario, assuming you would keep everything they can in your bank? The tackle box can store 51 different kinds of items. If you for some reason want to store everything, this is a little misleading, as some of them are upgrades to other items in the box, like the Spirit Angler set or the Infernal or Dragon Harpoons, while others are straight up never used and you wouldn't likely put them in the bank anyway, like fish offcuts, stripy feathers. I went ahead and manually calculated how many items you would realistically put in the tackle box and counted 27 items, which is still very respectable. The Huntsman kit realistically could be used to save 18 slots doing the same method. The bolt pouch realistically can save 4 slots. The forestry kit can save 14 slots given the clothes and cape pouch are installed. The Master Scroll book can save 19 slots, assuming you have some of every scroll, and the Frontier bag can save 3 slots in your bank. Overall, using realistic estimates, these containers plus the potion storage can save 151 slots in your bank, which is very, very good given the base member bank space is 800. The game allows these mechanics to be used and explored, and many players will want to use them. And well, using them will make you feel like you're being efficient and neat. Obviously, the first category is extra storage within your bank, the other will be extra storage outside of your bank. So what are they? We have the storage inside your player-owned house. These can be built and upgraded using the construction skill. They are the armor case, which can store different kinds of armor sets. The magic wardrobe, which can store unusual or magical items, but the wording here is very vague, with seemingly no real structure between the armor case or magic wardrobe. We have the treasure chest, which can store unique items from clue scrolls. The toy box, which stores fun items from seasonal events. The cape rack, which can store all kinds of capes and also allows you to display and use one. The fancy dress box, which allows you to store random event items. And the menagerie, which allows you to display your pets and let them roam free in your player-owned house. Some of these storage facilities are used in a permanent manner and you wouldn't really take any items out, while some are used to store items that you rarely use and occasionally take some of them out. But if you regularly use some items, you wouldn't really put them in here unless you're an Ultimate Iron Man, but yeah, you know. Since most of the items that you put in here are either very useful or not at all, it's very difficult to gauge how many bank slots they fill, but it's safe to say for an average player who did some clues here and there, and they want to keep some clue items and did random events for the collection logs, and would like to keep a few seasonal event items and also stores items that they don't regularly use, and have a few pets. Lots of assumptions, but it could easily save 70 to 80 slots at least, probably even more. Next up, we have storage in the open world. I would say the Seed Vault and the Stash units belong in this category for regular players. The Seed Vault is a facility in the farming guild that you unlock upon reaching 45 farming. You can store all your seeds and saplings here without taking up inventory spots. Normally, you would store important seeds in your bank that you use on a daily basis for herb runs, for example, but you would put everything else in here. It can save up to 92 bank slots, assuming you have every seed and every sapling, but realistically, since you wouldn't have most of the lower level saplings and you would keep some seeds in your bank, it would be closer to 70 or 80 slots saved, which is still incredibly useful. Of course, if we wouldn't have the Seed Vault, we would most likely drop or sell most of the non-useful seeds, but for the collectors and goobers out there, it's all fair game. Stash units, or store things and stuff here units, I'm serious, that's what it stands for, here's the wiki article, are places in the world near clue scroll steps where you can store items used for said clue scroll steps. Some of the items you store here are only used for that step, like you wouldn't realistically use a rune heraldic shield anywhere else, but either way, these items would clog up your bank if you couldn't store them. Given the fact that they range from beginner to master, it's also hard to estimate how many bank slots they could save. But if we're assuming a serious clue scroll Andy who just loves to do clues, they could probably fill up half their bank with just clue items if we didn't have these stash units. Before I talk about how the inventory system itself is built alongside the combat system of OSRS to form a beautiful waltz of codependency, let's tackle the other remaining big ticket item, the mega rares, the Ultimate Iron Man. As I said in the beginning of the video, what other MMORPG makes an official game mode where your inventory and storage is restricted, making you have to work around these restrictions and come up with unique training methods, skill methods, and very risky ways to kind of store some of your items for a limited amount of time. Despite all the jokes I made in this video, I really respect Ultimate Iron Man, and I wish I had that kind of perseverance and mental that these players show. Everything is much, much slower, and every item poses a huge question. Do I keep this, or do I drop this? If you don't know, Ultimate Iron Man have a tiny difference compared to main accounts and regular Iron Man. They don't have access to a bank. You know, that thing I've been rambling about for a while now, the thing that basically allows you to properly play this game. The thing that can store hundreds of items so you can gear for every situation. Yeah, UIMs don't have that. They also don't have a seed vault to make farming extra difficult. So what do they have? They have 28 inventory slots, grit, determination, a few extra tricks up their sleeve, and death piling. What is death piling? You ask as you are fully immersed in this wonderfully executed video while listening to my voice. Well, there is another thing where UIM differs from the main game. While regular accounts, and I'm going to use regular accounts as a way to describe non-UIM accounts. So main accounts and Iron Man, please get along for now, thank you. So while regular accounts drop their items into a gravestone when they die, which stands for 15 minutes, then all items are sent to Death's office to pick up for a higher fee. UIMs drop all their things on the ground, which is available to pick up for 1 hour, then it's gone forever. If you don't pick them up, they are gone forever. This makes UIMs be able to essentially have multiple inventories at the same time, given that they can keep track of each and every 1 hour timer. There are plugins for this, but would you risk millions and billions of GP worth of items on a finicky Runelight plugin? Sure. If you want to end up like UIM Loki, sorry Loki, you were the most recent example I could think of, he lost billions of GP worth of items because he messed up his death pile timer. This guy grinded for years, completed all combat achievements, and had a bank worth like 5 billion GP, probably more, and then he messed up one time and he lost most of it. I say most because this man had multiple death piles going for grinds he did. Some people say this is cheesing the game mode, but it just adds an extra layer of tediousness and it's very, very risky. Knowing all these, who are the UIMs? They walk among us. They wake up, grind skills, complete quests, do bosses, do raids, and complete combat achievements like the rest of us. So what's the big deal? Well, you know those quests where you need to have an empty inventory or no combat items, well, that still applies. You have to plan around it. What about bossing? It's nice going in to fight Solra with all the food. Well, half of their inventory is filled with other shit, so they have less room for food and potions. They have a few tricks up their sleeve, as I previously mentioned. I specifically highlighted death piling, as it's a massive difference compared to regular accounts. But two more tricks come to mind. One, the looting bag, originally intended to store loot within the wilderness to allow players to spend extra time killing bosses and collecting resources in the wilderness, but nowadays it's synonymous with the UIM game mode as it allows them to store another inventory worth of items with the restriction that they can only be removed if they die and that untradeable items cannot be stored here. The other trick is the death bank mechanic, where in case of certain bosses, death does not mean a pile of items or graves for regular accounts, but instead an NPC holding onto your items. Originally, this was made due to these bosses being in an instance, but with the gravestone mechanic, they became obsolete. But UIMs love them. They can store their items as long as they don't die another time. Well, if they die again, then their items are wiped forever. The massive restriction, that is the UIM game mode, basically created a dynamic that makes players have to carefully plan their routes, their trips, even their deaths, to even semi-efficiently train skills or kill bosses. However, for long-time UIMs who stick with the mode, once big grinds or big ticket item drops are completed, the satisfaction is unreal. Having a 2k plus total account with nice gear is cool. On a normal account, it's even cooler. For Iron Man, who had to do all that without trading, but an impressive UIM account turns heads. The UI of OSRS is very minimalistic. You have the game area, the minimap, the chat, and the inventory / prayers / spells / well, anything else that occupies this rectangle here. Since you cannot have your inventory, spells, and prayer up at the same time, having to swap between them creates another layer of difficulty in PvM. Sure, you get used to it quickly, but OSRS is a rhythm game between having to click on the correct specific game tiles, the enemies, the gear that you want to switch to, the supplies you want to consume, the prayers you want to activate, the spells you want to cast, the special attack pattern when you want to activate it, with certain fights having special extra interactions, the Vordorvis captcha, and the soul-hearted equipment protection coming to mind. Knowing this, it's no wonder the inventory and the combat is so interwoven. Here are 3 ways your inventory is limiting and participating in combat encounters. Number 1 is the just good old regular pure slot limitation, because there are items that you do not actively click on or use during a fight in your inventory, or they are basically locked to an encounter. Casting thrall spells requires the Book of the Dead in your inventory, but you don't really usually equip it. Casting spells requires runes, but you don't click them in combat. Needing items to teleport out, off, or after a fight are not used in combat for combat purposes, but they still need to be in your inventory. Some fights require an extra item, such as the Whisperer or Uke's Oculus. All these limit the amount of space you can bring food and potions, making fights more difficult. Number 2. Gear switches. Some encounters require multiple attack styles in order to beat. This may only be a weapon swap, but more often than not you would need to switch multiple pieces of equipment. Gear switches play a huge role in many encounters. And number 3, supplies. After all the necessary slots and gear switches, you are left with a limited amount of space to bring food and potions. This is where the true value of the limited inventory comes in. Do you bring better, more expensive food that heals more? Do you bring Sardomin brews that heal up to 64 HP in total over 4 sips? If so, you would need to bring super restores to offset the offensive stat drain of the Sardomin brews. But most encounters require some form of prayer restoration anyway, so super restores, which restore prayer as well, could be used here. You just need to pay attention to the ratio. 1 dose of super restore can offset the stat drain of 3 sips of Sardomin brew. This extra preparatory math and extra attention required during the fight adds some extra difficulty in exchange for more value for your inventory spots. You also need to consider bringing offensive boosting potions, because the Sardomin brews drain those as well, so it's an extra inventory space. Jagex has recently tried to add more breadth to the healing item repertoire, such as the hunter creature meats that heal more over time, or cure poison, allowing you to choose this over raw healing. Of course, they are more expensive because they are more difficult to obtain. Juggling all these different aspects truly makes the inventory a living part of the combat encounter, making fights more engaging. Given that OSRS is a relatively simple game in a sense, these extra steps in depth really add to the difficulty curve of the fights. Rhythm-based combat, precise movements, prayer swaps, item switches, special attacks, and strategic supply usage are the only way to control the difficulty meter of encounters, and 2 of these come from the inventory itself. The unique inventory, the bank system, the horizontal progression of player-owned house, and open world storage, the official game mode that builds around the inventory itself, and the incorporation of the importance of the inventory in combat truly makes OSRS's inventory system one of a kind. Not many other games can say that they can consider the inventory one of its most important aspects, both in progression and gameplay itself, and the UIM game mode is the cherry on top. It makes players interact with the system in basically every aspect of the game, and this dynamic makes you feel like it is very important and you have to work around it. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, let me know. If you didn't, also let me know, and feel free to subscribe. I had a lot of fun making this video and I hope you liked it too. And I will see you in the next one.